Hi. This is the first of, I don't know how many videos, maybe just one, where I thought it might be interesting to take a look at a piece of music, a composer, and to get beneath the text into the DNA, if you like, and try and work out what's going on, and to provoke a bit of debate, which is always healthy. Start a few arguments. And the piece I've been thinking about, the piece I wanted to focus on, was Cesar Franck's Symphony in D minor. And that's a piece that I was rehearsing a couple of days ago with my orchestra in Paris, Les Siècles, and François-Xavier Roth. And a piece I hadn't played since I was a teenager with Edinburgh Youth Orchestra, and a piece that I really didn't like at the time. I found it very heavy, found it a bit almost cheesy, some of it. Of course, was wrong on every count, The Folly of Youth and all that. And it's been wonderful to revisit it, and it's sort of been thought-provoking as well, particularly in context with some music written after it, which we'll come to in a second. And I wanted to just focus on one thing in particular in the first movement, and to see where it might lead us, and that is the second subject. The piece is in D minor, the second subject's in F major, and it has a very simple melody, which I'll play. And he harmonizes it like this. Very simple, very touching, eloquent melody. But it's the harmony that I'm interested in here. So what are these three chords? Well, F major. This is just a dominant ninth. And another dominant chord, another dominant 13. And these two dominant chords, the way they relate to each other, and then the resolution, absolutely conventional, nothing unusual about them. So secondary dominant, dominant, back to our key of F major. So why is that interesting? Well, it's interesting because of what he does next. Because a few bars later, only 10 bars later, the violins play this arpeggio, and it goes between another two dominant seventh chords, but this time they're not related to each other really in any way. So the violins play this. And then in fact he brings us to another dominant. Another dominant. We think we're going into F major. We go straight into A flat major. That's another thing in itself. I want to just concentrate on these two dominant seventh chords, C sharp 7 and A7. Now C sharp 7th would normally resolve if we just had it in conventional to F sharp major, and A7 to D major. But of course they're not here in that capacity at all. And it's really quite very particular sound. And I was thinking when we were playing this, what does that remind me of? Why is this quintessentially Franck-esque? Well, if we look at the violin stroke cello sonata stroke, definitely not flute sonata, he does the same thing. If we start from the beginning, in fact, we start with a dominant ninth chord, and the interesting thing about this and how he uses dominant seventh chords, and this is the whole point here. The beginning of this sonata, because of this ninth in the chord, the dominant seventh chord has a very stable property to it. It's not crying out to resolve to A major. If I just played that in isolation, our ears we're really drawn to that. We are to a certain extent, but actually the chord is so stable and so happy with itself that enough so for it to last for 4 bars, and there's no real sort of tension, harmonic tension. Then we get the melody. He juxtaposes it with B minor. He's flirting with us because we know it's an A major. And finally he gives us our home key. Now it's the next few bars that are really interesting. This progression. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. You see why? Now these three chords, have we heard that before this morning on this video? Well, yes, we have. We go back to our C sharp. It's exactly this, almost exactly the same thing. He's going between A major and F7, this major third step in the bass, which Schubert loved going. But this time, what Franck does differently is he prepares this second dominant chord with a diminished chord, which is very much in keeping with the chord, the key that we've been in, and then drops the bass line to give us our juxtaposition. So actually in the symphony he could have prepared that with a diminished which actually would have been a little bit kinder, softer on the ear, if you like, as he does in the violin sonata. And then I was thinking, well, that is reminiscent of something else, something very close to my heart, and that's the music of Debussy, and how the one might have influenced the other. And if this juxtaposition of dominant chords that don't relate in a conventional way, well, if we look at the beginning of Le Prélude l'Après-midi, then, where is it? Where's my score? Here it is, where we get the very famous flute solo, which is unaccompanied, no harmony, very ambiguous as to what the key center is. The first harmony we hear is this. And then he repeats it even quieter. Apologies for the very out of tune piano. Well, it doesn't really give us a key to what the actual key is, because this dominant seventh, well, in fact, it's a dominant ninth in the same way that the Cesar Franck starts. This B flat that we get is in no way part of F major. But the interesting thing for me is the chord that precedes that, after the flute plays this. If I put a bass note in, which Debussy doesn't because it's implied, you can argue with me if you like, but for me, my ear really wants to put an F sharp there. If I go between those two chords, that B flat 7 to G flat F sharp 7th is exactly the same relationship as in the Cesar Franck. Yeah, so we're going between, so Debussy's in the same relationship, if you like. And then the really interesting thing is that we do then, I mean, he's toying with us throughout this prelude, Debussy, because we want to know what the harmony underneath this flute melody is. And the first time he gives it to us, we don't sort of believe him. It's wonderful. It's this sort of wonderful bed of D major 7th. Which he juxtaposes with a G7. But we kind of know he's tricking us. We know it's not in that key. And when he finally does give us in fact, if we go right to the end, where is it? Come on, where is it? And he's harmonizing the melody between an E. In fact, it's an E13, an E with all the extensions, if you like, just like at the beginning of a few extra notes here. What's this? Well, that E7 B7 to C7. Again, it's the same juxtaposition of that we had in the Franck. This major third interval between them, but this time, but actually he keeps the same bass note, so we go. And the wonderful thing is how he finishes off the piece. I mean, this is a subject of another video altogether, but he then harmonizes it with the horns just towards the end, or just the last 4 bars. Which Strauss rips off in Rosenkavalier. It's absolutely astonishing. These triads, which all, and again, he's still, he could finish it off in conventional fashion, but of course he doesn't. I mean, that's what's implied. Extraordinary. So from Cesar Franck's very simple, perhaps there's actually a line from that right through to this. I don't know, but it's wonderful music.